When I was a student in the UK, I was told an interesting anecdote about a male herbalist who was holidaying on a Greek island. And he came across this, a bunch of chase tree, Vitex agnus castus, in berry, ready to harvest, growing in the wild. And he couldn't believe his luck. There were kilos and kilos of these beautiful chase tree berries. So he grabbed what he could in his backpack and what have you, and started loading as many berries as he could harvest into it. And he was then surrounded by some of the local Greek women who very stridently wanted to know what the hell was a man, doing harvesting a woman's herb. So my Q&A for this month is, do herbs have a gender? Well, in keeping perhaps with modern thinking, herbs actually don't appear to have a gender bias. So we shouldn't think of a herb as being only for women or women's problems, or only for men and men's problems. And I'm going to use a few examples to illustrate that. So let's start with chase tree. Yes, it is the very best women's herb and has such a broad range of applications, which if you look at the monograph that I wrote in, I think co-wrote with Beresbergoin, I think it was, in Principles and Practice of Phytotherapy. If you look at that monograph, you'll see a range of very important uses for chase tree in women's health. But chase tree is also good for men. Now, the most obvious use of chase tree in men is, of course, because chase tree induces melatonin production. It helps boost melatonin production. So you can use the chase tree to help people who have sleep maintenance insomnia by naturally boosting their melatonin. And quite often it works better than melatonin itself, or perhaps because it's working from the natural pathways. You can use that to boost sleep, to help people who, once they're asleep, to stay asleep, to help maintain their sleep so they don't wake up and toss and turn and can't get back to sleep. And so you're not going to deny the men that application. And you don't need too high a dose for that. So the equivalent of about 1.5 or 2 grams of dried chase tree fruit equivalent per day, not before bed, because it's working on melatonin, so it doesn't matter when you take it. But also, if you go higher with chase tree, it can be quite useful for men because it can help turn off libido. So if a man is suffering from excessive libido, or maybe is a sex addict or something like that, you can use the chase tree in that context at quite a high dose, about 3 to 4 times the amounts, the 1.5 to 2 grams I mentioned for sleep maintenance. And then it comes to one of its traditional names. It was monk's pepper. And presumably it was used by the monks as a pepper to put on their food to help them, keep their thoughts at a higher level and to reduce their libido. So monk's pepper was one of its use. So we can see that chase tree has, even notwithstanding the new modern melatonin application, chase tree has legitimate uses for men as well as women. But probably the best example of all, and this is the only other example I'm going to give, I could go on for quite some time, but I'm sure you prefer these short little snippets, is Tribulus terrestris. Now, as I've emphasized before, the part to use in Tribulus terrestris is the leaf, and we have all of this wonderful Bulgarian research, and others have now taken up the mantle of doing Tribulus clinical research on the leaf. And we find that Tribulus for women is great for menopausal symptoms. It's wonderful to help promote female fertility. and more recently appears to be beneficial for female libido. Then we look at tribulus for men. Well, I actually haven't ever, men can get hot flushes too, or hot flashes as they're called in America. Often if, for example, they're having treatment for prostate cancer with androgen ablation. I haven't actually ever tried tribulus for that because it's probably not the right circumstances to use it. But I imagine tribulus would have that application in men. It certainly boosts male fertility in their clinical trials in that regard, and it boosts male libido. So here we have a herb, and it equally works for similar applications in men and women. So there's no gender bias for tribulus. And we can ask, well, why is that the case? And the answer is it's probably working higher up. It's probably working on the hypothalamic, pituitary, gonadal axes. And if it sites higher up, then whether it's, luteinizing hormone or FSH or inducing testosterone in a man, the mechanism is coming up here, and the sites are probably very similar that it's influencing to cause those effects. And it makes you wonder about other such herbs like shatavari, 100 husbands is the literal translation, and very much seen as a female herb, fertility, menopausal symptoms, and as a galactagogue, so very similar uses to tribulus leaf. And you wonder about shatavari for men, and you do find in the Ayurvedic tradition, especially as it's considered as a Rasayana herb, a general tonic, it does have applications for men. Again, probably working on similar pathways in the male physiology as to what it works in the female physiology.